Happy Saturday, everybody. My name is Alex. You can call me Yoxicola. Today, I'm going to show you guys my deck tech for my Xenagos God of Revels deck. This is the deck that I usually pull out at the end of the night because my brain is fried and I just want to play Magic. And this is something that you put big creatures out there and you swing big damage at people. Nothing more to it. If you like these videos and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. Comment below if you have any suggestions. And thanks for tuning in. This is one of my favorite decks. It is my Xenagos God of Revels big scary creature deck. It is 3 colorless, a red and a green for Xenagos, which is a legendary enchantment creature god. It's indestructible. It has the devotion thing like all those gods do. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until the end of the turn, where X is that creature's power. Very simple deck. If you want to turn your brain off and have fun, play Xenagos, because you're putting big creatures out there, you're running people over, and you're winning the game with big damage. I don't even have to say any more. Let's see what I have in the deck. I run 37 lands in the deck. If you want to see the lands, there is a deck list in the description below, but I don't talk about those in the videos. So I'm going to first talk about ramp, and honestly, I've been looking through this, and there's really nothing that interesting in the ramp section. It's all basic green ramp. So we got Cultivate, Explosive Vegetation, Farseek, Elysian Caryatid, I think is what that's called. And this one can actually tap for 2 mana if we have a big enough creature, which we eventually will. Kodama's Reach, Llanowar Elves, Migration Path, Rampant Growth, Steve, Soul Ring, and Whisper of the Wilds, which again can tap for 2 mana if we have a big enough creature. So it's all very basic. We just need to build up so that we can get to our creatures and get to Xenagos, and then we'll start running creatures at our opponents. So next I'll talk about the card advantage. So let's talk card advantage, because we want to make sure that we keep getting cards in our hand so that we can flop them onto the battlefield and give them haste with Xenagos. So the first one is Court of Bounty, which is a new card from Commander Legends. It's a 4 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, we become the Monarch. Great. I love Monarch, and especially in this deck, we're going to be attacking a ton, so I think it's a great addition. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this card actually helps us ramp as well. If we're the Monarch, however, we get to put a creature or land from our hand onto the battlefield. So if we are the Monarch on our turn, we can put something big in right away, and it's not going to cost us any mana. So this is a really fun card. I'm excited to see how it plays in the deck. Evolutionary Leap is a great card, in my opinion, because we have big creatures, and they cost a lot of mana. So if we dump all of our mana into one creature, that really sucks if that creature gets taken care of, and we don't have one to replace it. So this is nice because if a creature that we control is going to die anyways, we could pay the green, sacrifice that creature, and then we will reveal from the top of our library until we get another creature that can hopefully take its place next turn. Greater Good is one of my favorite cards in the deck. It is sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. We have things like Malignus in here, which can sometimes get insane and have like 40 attack. I've almost drawn myself out with this deck several times, and this is one of the cards that helps me get there. So I love this card. Every once in a while I look at it and say, oh, it's 4 mana, I could probably do something else with this turn. But once you have this card out there, it is so effective, especially if somebody's wiping the board, because then you are going to draw so many cards. Hunter's Insight is very good because you can swing at somebody, and if they just decide not to block or they can't block, add this on there, and then you're drawing a card for each damage you do. And we do a lot of damage in the deck. Lead the Stampede is okay. It's 3 mana, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal any number of creature cards from among them, and put those into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of the library. So this could potentially get you 5 creatures. Most of the time when I cast this, I'm looking for 1, maybe 2. Life's Legacy. Sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. It's a 2 mana sorcery version of Greater Good, except we don't have to discard any cards, which is nice. Momentous Fall. This is at an instant, so you can do this in response to a creature dying. But you have to sacrifice a creature again. and then draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and then you also gain life equal to its toughness. So this card has actually saved me a couple times because our creatures get so large, and it's just such... All these sacrifice creature spells that draw us cards are so good in this deck because all of our creatures are going to have such high power. Return of the Wild Speaker, another instant. It's basically another version of Hunter's Insight, except it's a couple more mana, but you can also buff up your board if you want to. Rishkar's Expertise, again, it's 6 mana. This one's a sorcery. You draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, which can be a massive amount of cards. And then you also get to play a card with converted mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying for it. So, very good card. Soul of the Harvest, I've been back and forth on keeping this. We don't have a ton. It's not like we're casting creature after creature after creature, but it's a 6/6 with trample, so it itself can get big with Xenagos. I've been back and forth. It's still good enough to keep in the deck, in my opinion. And then Soul's Majesty. 5 mana, draw cards equal to the power of target creature you control. So all of these cards that target based on the power of the creatures that we control are so good at drawing cards, and I promise if you are able to get 1 or 2 of them off, usually just 1, you're going to be set for the rest of the game because you're going to have a ton of options in your hand. Here are the creatures that are going to run our opponents over. First one, Artisan of Kozilek. It's a 9 mana, 10/9 with Annihilator 2, and when you cast it, you can return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's nice. We don't really have ways of putting things in our graveyard, but it's nice to be able to recur something if it's there. Atarka, World Render. 7 mana, dragon with flying and trample. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains double strike until the end of the turn. I think we only have a couple dragons, but it itself is a dragon. So if this comes in, you put the Xenagos trigger on it. It now is a 12/10 flying, trampling double striker. So that's very good. Drakuseth is a dragon. 7 mana flying, 7/7. When it attacks, deal 4 damage to any target and then 3 damage to any other 2 targets. So you can start picking off pieces of the board, or you can do direct damage to people's faces. Itali, I have in here just because I think it's a really fun card. 6 mana for a 6/6. When it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library, and then you can cast those cards without paying their mana cost. I really like this in the deck specifically because Xenagos gives haste, and there's nothing worse than casting this card and having it die before you actually get to use it, so giving it haste is really cool. Galta, Primal Hunger. It is a 12 mana 12/12 that has trample, and it costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. Usually what happens with this is we don't cast this in our pre-combat main phase. We attack with a big creature that has a Xenagos trigger on it already, and then after that, that creature is so big that it only costs 2 mana to cast Galta, so really good card. Hydra Omnivore. I really, really like this card because this makes it so when we deal combat damage to an opponent with Hydra Omnivore, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So if we are able to buff this up enough, we can just kill the whole table if one person doesn't have a block. Inferno Titan. 6 mana, 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, deals 3 damage divided as you choose. It has the fire breathing effect, so you can pay 1 red and give it +1/+0 until the end of the turn. So if you do that before combat, and then you do the Xenagos trigger, it's kind of like each time you pay 1 red, it's +2/+0, which is pretty nice. Kadama of the East Tree is a new card from Commander Legends. We'll see how it works. I mean, it's a 6/6 reaching big spirit tree thing, so it seems like it'll be good. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put there with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. So this lets us cheat creatures out for... we'll be playing our creatures that have big mana costs, and then we'll be putting in smaller ones right after that. So really good card. Malignus, I talked about this one a little earlier. 5 mana, star. Damage that would be dealt by Malignus can't be prevented, which is nice. It's actually won me a game before because somebody tried to fog, and you can't fog this. But its power and toughness are each equal to half the highest life total among your opponents rounded up, which means with Xenagos, this is now star, where star is the greatest life total among your opponents. So if you have this in like Rogue's Passage or something, you're just going to be able to kill whoever you want at the table. Quartzwood Crasher. I have not actually gotten to use this card yet, but I'm interested to see how good it is. It's a 6/6 trampler for 5 mana, which is already nice. But whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast where with trample where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. So this is nice because it makes your creatures based on how much trample damage you do, and then those creatures themselves have trample. So if left on the battlefield, this thing can start just making a ton of creatures because those things have trample, they make dinosaurs, and now you're making more with those. Really cool card. Savage Ventmaw, I used to have Aggravated Assault in here for the infinite combo. After winning with that like once or twice, I took it out just because I didn't like doing that anymore. So it's just in here for value. It's 6 mana, 4/4. It's a dragon, flying, and then when it attacks, you get 6 mana until the end of your turn. Terra Stomper, not a great card, but I think it's funny. It's an 8/8, 6 mana. It's kind of a running joke in our friend group when people play this card, so I have it in the deck. I mean, it can't be countered and it has trample. So with Xenagos, it's a 16/16 can't be countered with trample. Tyrant's Familiar, 7 mana, flying dragon with haste. As long as you control your commander, it gets +2/+2 and has whenever this attacks, deals 7 damage to target creature defending player controls. So you can destroy a big creature with this, and then also because it gets +2/+2, that means it's a 7/7 before the Xenagos trigger happens, so it becomes a 14/14 flyer. And then Zendikar Incarnate, its power is equal to the number of lands you control. This is actually a really good card on like turn 4, because then if you cast Xenagos on turn 5, this thing will end up being like a 10/4 with the Xenagos trigger. So this thing can get in for some good early damage. So our creatures are already massive, but let's just make them do even more damage. First we have Blood Mist. Is a 4 mana enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains double strike. With the power that we can give some of our creatures with Xenagos, this card is nuts. Giving, like Terra Stomper, if just our Terra Stomper is a 16/16 with trample, now with Blood Mist out there, it's a 32/32 essentially. So big damage from this card. Chandra's Ignition is a good way to win the game. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. If you have Malignus out there, you just kind of win if you have the Xenagos trigger on it. And there's a bunch of other creatures that can get their power way up there too. Fling is a really good card because if you can win the game with this pretty easily. If you are able to take out one person with a couple big creatures, and then another person's already kind of low from before, or they're not even that low, maybe they're at like 20 something, but you have a big creature, just sacrifice it and just throw it at them so the game ends right there. Mage Slayer, whenever a quick creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to defending player. So it's going to attack, do that damage, but it's still attacking. So it's kind of like Double Strike, but a little better because you're guaranteed to get at least its attack damage in once. Overwhelming Stampede, if you have enough creatures out there, honestly, you only need like 3 creatures for this to matter, but if you do, this card will just run everyone over and win you the game on the spot. Siege Behemoth. 7 mana, 7/4. It has hexproof. As long as Siege Behemoth is attacking, for each creature you control, you may have that creature assign combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So when I first read this, I just took it as, oh, our creatures can't be blocked. That's not what the effect is saying. It's saying that your creatures are still blocked, but it's kind of like super trample, where they have, if you want to, you can leave those creatures alone and just have all the damage go to the player, but they're still being blocked by a creature. So if they're being blocked by something that would kill them, they still die, but it's really good to have that ability to kind of choose where your damage goes. Soul's Fire. 3 mana, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to any target. It's an instant, it's a really good card. Throw a big creature, or you don't even have to throw the creature can stay there, just have it do damage to whoever you want to. Strionic Resonator. This is only in here for Xenagos because when its trigger is happening, you pay 2 mana and tap this, copy that ability, so you're going to double something, or you're going to double something by +X+X, and then you're going to do it one more time. And then World at War. This is the only extra combat spell I think I have left in here. 5 mana, there's 2 combats this phase, and then it has rebound, so it happens again the next turn. So you're just going to be smacking people relentlessly. Alright, so first, for removal, we have Bane of Progress, which is a 6 mana 2/2. When it comes into the battlefield, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Keep in mind that that will destroy yours as well. But usually when you're using this, you need to get rid of certain artifacts or enchantments, or you're not going to take that big of a hit from it. And then it gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment that were destroyed this way. So it becomes a big creature after it wipes the board. Beast Within is a really strong removal spell because it's 3 mana, instant, and it can get rid of any permanent. And then the controller makes a 3/3 beast token. Chaos Warp is another good removal spell. It's 3 mana. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So basically, when you're doing this, you're just getting rid of a really big threat and hoping that whatever they flip off the top of the library is not an equally large threat. Decimate is, in my opinion, one of the best removal spells out there. It's 4 mana. Destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. The only reason I think some people don't run this in all Gruul decks is because there has to be a target for each of those, otherwise you can't cast it. So, but since it's commander, almost all these things are usually going to be out there. So it's a really good card because it's 4 mana, destroy 4 things. Gruul Rage Beast is a big creature, and it's a 7 mana 6/6. When it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature fights target creature an opponent controls. So that's not a May ability, but usually our creatures are so big that whatever our opponents have, we're going to be able to take out with this. So this is a good form of creature removal. Sunder Shaman is a 4 mana 5/5, and it has Anti-Menace. It can't be blocked by more than one creature. And then when it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And then Terastodon is a 8 mana 9/9. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each permanent put into a graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. So it's good at picking off pieces of the board that we don't want there. And then it's a 9/9, so it's a big creature. Alright, so the last 2 sections we have are Protect What Matters and Gift of Trample. The Protect What Matters section, we're going to start off with Archetype of Endurance. It gives all of our creatures hexproof, and then our opponents can't have hexproof, so it's harder for them to deal with our creatures. And it's also a 6/5. Asceticism. Creatures you control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Again, our creatures have hexproof, and then we can also pay 2 mana to regenerate one of our creatures if it dies. Basilisk Collar might seem like a weird card to put in here, but being able to put this out there for 1 mana and then equip it for 2 is a really great way to give something lifelink. I don't really care about the Death Touch, but the lifelink, we do so much damage with a lot of these creatures that we'll be able to skyrocket our health to a point where our opponents probably can't deal with it. Deflecting Swat. 3 mana. If you control a commander, you can cast this spell without paying its mana cost. So we're almost always, hopefully, going to have Xenagos out there because it's an indestructible enchantment, which is really tough to get rid of. And then, so we can basically, for free, choose a new target for target spell or ability. Prowling Ceropod is a 3 mana 4/3 that can't be countered, and creature spells you control can't be countered. Rhythm of the Wild, again, creature spells we control can't be countered. And then non-token creatures you control have Riot, so they can come in stronger, or if we don't have Xenagos out there, you can give them haste. And then Spellbreaker Behemoth is a 4 mana 5/5. It can't be countered, and then creature spells we control with power 5 or greater can't be countered. So really good because dumping a lot of mana into a spell just to have it not resolve by a counter spell or something really, really sucks. So being able to make sure that our creatures can't be countered is a strong thing to have. And then the last part we have is just the Gift of Trample, because when you look through the creature section, I didn't mention this before, but since Xenagos doesn't give Trample, it just gives +X/+X and haste. We want to make sure that our creatures do have Trample so that their damage is getting through because they have so much power. We don't want them to get chumped. So Kenra Charioteer, 3 mana 3/3. It has Trample, and then other creatures we control also have Trample. Rancor is really nice because it's really tough to get rid of 1 mana enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. And then when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So it's 1 mana +2/+0 with the Xenagos trigger. It's +4/+0, and they have trample. And then Thunderfoot Baloth is a 5/5 when you control your commander, and it has trample. And then when you control your commander, and this is out there, it gets +2/+2, and all other creatures you control have +2/+2 and trample. So this card is very strong. It can buff our board, and they're all going to have trample. So that is my Xenagos deck. Tell me what you think about it in the comments below. If I had an extra $100 to spend on any Magic deck that I currently had, I think this is what I would throw it into. I think it'd be fun to get something like Balefire Dragon, or just another. There's a bunch of big creatures out there that just are a little bit out of my price range when I initially made this deck, but I really like this deck. It's really fun. If you don't have a Xenagos deck and you think it looks interesting, you can make it on a budget. You can make one really strong. It's up to you. I think it's a really fun commander. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have a good night.